This week, Secretary Clinton was talking about her plans to make college more affordable. And she's also picking fights. Recently, Clinton took on Jeb Bush over federal funding for women's health and Marco Rubio over his position that abortion should be restricted in all cases. The hope is that those fights get news coverage and show Democratic voters that Clinton is willing to fight for the issues they care about.
Look over here. Nothing to see. Nothing to see here. We live in an era where conspiracy knee-jerk should be tattooed on the forehead of many a politician and a voter. Thanks to impossible spy movies, ridiculous CSI TV shows that solve crimes in less than 60 minutes, the internet gobs of laughable websites that have nothing better to do all day than make it up as they go along, and a good portion of the electorate trading in their human DNA for that of sheeple. This brings us to Hillary Clinton, her email server, her multiple verbal dodges, and the gee, look what I found news from the State Department being absolutely shocked in finding almost 18,000 more emails they claimed didn't exist. Oh, keep that knee in place. There's a grassy knoll in here somewhere. Here comes the political animal. Afternoon talker along the Colorado Rockies, 630 KHOW in Denver, former FEMA director Michael Brown, and senior political contributor at Forbes, more important co-host of the Daily Wrap here on Newsmax every weeknight at 6 Eastern, Rick Ungar. Gentlemen, Mike, going to start with you. Wow. Look at this, 18,000 emails we didn't know exist. I got to tell you, this is better. You couldn't write comedy like this for a late night show, Mike.
You can't. And the best part is there's a little Denver connection to this story. Platte River, which is the company that eventually took possession of the server, did what any good backup company or server service does. The minute they received that server, what do? They backed it all up. So despite the fact that Hillary claims to have deleted 18,000 emails about yoga or Chelsea's wedding or whatever else, somewhere deep in the bowels of a building in downtown Denver, Colorado, are all of the emails just waiting to be discovered.
I don't know why, but all of a sudden I'm just like wringing my hands here. It's kind of like one of those moments. You know, it doesn't get... Hey, Rick, come on. Now, look, you got to be just a little concerned about this because you've got the CIA involved, the FBI involved, the State Department, the Pentagon, intel sources. Everybody's involved here, and nobody wanted to say anything to Hillary Clinton. Don't you think somebody would have said, Mrs. Clinton, this is not the right thing to do? You want to talk conspiracy? We got a great lead up here.
I don't think she should have needed anybody to tell her, frankly. She should have been able to figure it out all on her own. Michael, I'm curious, do you know if the backup company was ever told whether or not to erase their backups? Because I've heard that they were.
Oh, I haven't heard that, but you know what? I'll find out.
I'm kind of hoping you're right. You know, I'd like to know that those backups are there. Look, you know, I haven't defended Hillary Clinton on this, and I'm not going to. What she did was not only wrong, it was stupid. It was just plain stupid. You know you're going to run for president. You probably don't want to behave, excuse me, the way she was behaving. It was ridiculous. It may have been criminal, remains to be seen, but we're seeing a lot of evidence coming out now, which is questionable, to say the least.
Well, let me do that. And you talk about criminal here. Here's Chris Christie, who's a New Jersey governor, former federal prosecutor. He says there has to be a criminal probe here. Look, Snowden gets a probe. Others do every time we think anything about confidential American governmental information. Come on, Rick. This has got criminal probe written all over it. This has got to have somebody right there.
Underway. I think it's already underway. I mean, the more I've learned this week about how this process works, skiff rooms, things like this, things where this data is protected and how it's allowed to be distributed, I can't believe that there's anything going on. We know there's investigations going on. It's only a question of the conclusions once you find out precisely what happened. So it is a criminal probe, even if it's not being labeled as such.
But, Mike, here's part of it in here, too, because I mentioned all these other agencies. People knew this was going on. They knew Mrs. Clinton had this server. They knew this material was here. Somebody, and it has to be more than one governmental agency, has been covering this up. Either they were trying to take care of Mrs. Clinton, or they fear the Clintons with repercussions. All right, hang on 1 sec. I'll let you get to that. Mike, what do you think of that?
Well, let me give you a little perspective. I wasn't the Secretary of State. I was a lowly Undersecretary of Homeland Security. And I can tell you that on my email within DHS and FEMA, I received at least one classified email every single day and or a briefing every single day from the CIA or the DIA or the FBI or somebody else. So I can't imagine that the Secretary of State throughout her entire tenure, didn't receive classified emails. So I think it goes without saying there will be classified documents on there. And to your point, Ed, it's going to be who knew what, when did they know it. I mean, this is Nixonian in the way it's being handled.
Here we go again. 20 seconds to you. Go ahead, Rick.
The reason I said maybe not so fast on State Department cover-ups, et cetera, the way that this works, you'd only need to have one of Mrs. Clinton's aides who had the high enough clearance to go into a skiff room to take care of this. As Michael says, it could have been every day. She goes in, downloads it, takes it, pops it in her computer, and sends it to Mrs. Clinton's private email. So, you know, I think that this is going to ensnare other people more than likely, but it may not be some massive, you know, State Department cover-up.
I only got a few seconds left. Rick, let me start with you. Newt Gingrich says the GOP should fear Sanders, not Hillary. Thinks maybe Bloomberg, Jerry Brown, or Warren still might get in the race. I think he's just kind of having a good time there for a moment, don't you?
I think of any of those names, the only one that strikes me as even possibly pragmatic would be Bloomberg.
Anybody you think get in there? Rick, Mike, Rick rather? I'm sorry, Mike.
No,
there you go. I'll get it right.
Else will. Yeah.
I'll get it right. Go ahead, Mike.
I'd love to see all of them get in there. I'd love to see the Democrats have Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and Michael Bloomberg. I mean, I tell you what, if we're going to have a cluster, let's have a cluster. I think it'd be great.
Good. I'm glad you stopped it right there and didn't go any further.
Yeah, I know. I was waiting for him to complete that.
No, not on the show. Michael Brown, 630 KO, Denver, Colorado. Rick Ungar from Newsmax. And, of course, don't forget the Daily Wrap, 6 o'clock Eastern. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. Hey, by the way, we need to ask you, who's your choice as the GOP nominee in 2016? Tell us. Go to newsmaxpolls.com. We'll talk about it as we move on right here. Coming up next, more of the fastest 60 minutes in news.